Hello, and welcome to episode 11 of Books and Stuff. As you notice, today I'm not wearing the headset. Basically, this is because there was some issue with the audio last episode. At least on my end, it sounded kind of scratchy and poppy. And I wasn't sure if it was the mic. My headset mic that was doing it. I was also a little too lazy to test it, so I'm just using the one that's built into the webcam, which is surprisingly nice, to be honest. Better quality than I would have expected for just a built-in webcam mic, but that's what I'm using for today's episode. So that's why the big clunky headset's no longer on my head. I also want to talk very briefly about how the rest of November is going to go, because things are getting hectic. What with college stuff, homework, papers I'm writing, just studying, all of that, on top of me doing roughly 2 of these videos a week, on top of NaNoWriMo. Things are getting stressful. Not overly much, but I'm beginning to realize that I may be setting the bar a wee bit too high, and I do need to have my focus be on education. As much as I enjoy doing these videos and my writing, I need to get decent grades. So, you guys are going to have to bear with me if my reading level drops drastically, which it already has to some extent. Mostly I've just been lucky that the videos I've done so far, I've put them off so long that it just lands right after I finish reading the book. But I probably won't be doing much reading this month at all. So I'll be trying to work other things into the review section of these video blogs. Today I'll be talking about part of a certain idea behind a book that I'm going to begin reading very shortly. And other than that, I might do a couple of author spotlights that I talked about in the past. Just talk about one of the authors that I read or have read. Other than that, I might somebody in one of the comments brought up the idea of actually analyzing some of the quotes that I throw in. That could be fun, to be honest. So I might do that if I don't have anything else to talk about. So I guess we'll just see as these progress. But until then, we'll just get back into, we'll just try and get these to do as much as I can. So very shortly I'm going to begin reading Atlas Shrugged by Ayn Rand. I'm probably saying her first name wrong. It's been a bane of mine for a long time. I've yet to read any of her work. I know a good deal about what she writes about and the philosophy she's created, and it's actually that philosophy that I want to briefly, very briefly describe and just kind of explain in this little episode, because it'll give you some background as to what I'm reading, and if it interests you, then maybe it would point this out as a book you'd like to read, or one that you never ever want to read, depending on how you receive this information. Basically, Rand created the philosophy of Objectivism. And the reason I know as much about this as I do is because Terry Goodkind, who wrote the Sword of Truth books, is a stalwart objectivist himself, and a lot of the philosophy comes through in the books he writes. So, in an effort to better understand him, I needed to do some research on Rand's philosophy. Basically, the simplest explanation for objectivism is that it's the opposite of altruism. I've got to be careful in the way I explain both of these two concepts, just because there's room for issue. Basically, altruism is giving of oneself for others, above all. That's goal number one, to help others. Issues of the singular person come last. It's the whole the many over the needs of the many over the needs of the few idea. Objectivism is the reverse of that. It puts the needs of you at the forefront. That you should be living your life the way you want to, that you should be living your life for you, and not simply existing to benefit others. This is a very her philosophy is highly controversial. I think mostly because it's not really understood. Even the Wikipedia page about objectivism, I think, does a terrible job of explaining what it is, because they use the word selfishness in describing it, and that's the reading that most people get when they think about this philosophy itself, is that, oh, well, everything's about you, so you're a selfish jerk kind of thing. That's not the idea behind objectivism. Objectivism is the want. It's doing what you want to do. While that could mean that you're selfish, and you want to think only of yourself and put yourself before others, it's also perfectly acceptable under objectivism to, if you want to help other people, you can help other people as long as it's what you want to do. You shouldn't. It basically means you shouldn't be doing things because other people are telling you to. Everything you do, every thought you have should be of your own volition. And I think that's what people don't really understand too well from objectivism. And could I be wrong? Of course I could be wrong. I've never spoken with her. I haven't done extensive research on her philosophy, so I very well could be wrong. That's, however, the reading that I have gotten from my research and my understanding, and that's what I'm going to be going off of. So that's all I have for that. All of her work is built off of that centralizing idea of objectivism. So if that's something you're interested in reading, I'd give it I'd check it out. I've read only a couple of pages of this book, and I have enjoyed what I've read so far. I was surprised. I'd heard that she was awfully dry, but I've enjoyed it so far. So that might change as I progress through the book. I don't know, but we shall see. So now, I won't have a quote for this episode just because I'm not really. I prefer to take one from the book I'm reading at the time, and I've not gotten far enough into this book to begin quoting it. So we're gonna move right on to Ask Ken. Today's question was worded quite strangely, and the person didn't leave a name or identifier. So I'm gonna try and put it into the best question that I can. Basically, their question was, do you listen to audiobooks? And if you do, why? If you don't, why? That's basically what their question was asking. And I guess I have in the past listened to a couple of audiobooks. Mainly the only trying to remember. I think the only ones I've really listened to are a couple of the Harry Potter books, and maybe part of A Tale of Two Cities. But other than that, sorry, sniffles. Other than that, I really haven't gotten into audiobooks for a couple of reasons. A, they take way too long. And I have never started with an audiobook. The audiobooks I've listened to were after the fact, after I've already read it once. Trying to remember, I believe the audiobook for the fourth Harry Potter was over 24 hours long. That's a book I can read somewhere between 5 and 7 hours. I just really can't sit there and listen to a book for 24 hours. So that's part of it. They just take way too long to listen to, and I just don't have that time. I mean, I'd have to listen to it in like 10-minute chunks every 3 days or something, and I wouldn't be able to hold on to the story. It'd be gone. So, and you wouldn't be able to listen to it doing work or anything, because it's a story. You got to pay attention. It's not like music where you can just let it bounce off of you. I mean, it's a book. I wouldn't be able to do work with a book playing in my head. Or whatever work I did I'd just start writing down lines from the book. And that probably wouldn't be what my homework wanted. So the other problem, the other issue I run into with them is it's not the voice I had envisioned for the characters and the narrator and all of that. Whenever you read a book, you create the characters for yourself in a way. I mean, yeah, you get descriptions of them to an extent. I mean, you know what they look like. Maybe they're one of those special characters that has an accent or something like that. But by and large, you give them their voice. Whatever that description, whatever that physical description you got was, dictates what voice you give them. You're gonna go, oh well, that's a lot like Stephen, so I'm gonna give him a Stephen's voice, or something along that line. And when you get some other narrator who they just don't live up to that because they can't. And a single narrator, for the most part, the ones I've listened to have been men. I haven't ever heard an audiobook narrated by a woman. I figure Oprah's done a couple, but I don't. And it's just they just don't do. I mean, they can't do female characters' voices. They just can't. And I'm sure women audiobook recorders, narrators, run into I'm sure you run into the same problem with their male characters. So I like to stay away from them. I think I can do a better job narrating of reading my books than anybody else can, so I leave it up to me. That's all I have for this episode, guys. It's the 9th of November. I'm putting out a NaNoWriMo day-by-day episode, so go check that out. And I'll see you guys on Monday. Adios.